test my mic real quick though. All right. Does it sound good now?
Yeah, it's better.
All right. First game on the slate, Miami versus the Bengals. This line has actually moved a decent bit too. It opened Miami favored by 1. Now it's Bengals by 1.5. The total was at 45.5. It's dropped half a point, but that little bit of line doesn't concern me a ton. So I guess what are you interested in this game? Are you interested in I would imagine Joe Mixon will probably be chalky, but I think there's a decent chance that he's good chalk. So what are you doing with that? I guess we can start off with.
Yeah, so if I'm of the opinion he's good chalk. It might change. We got Dion Lewis news at 6 a.m. today, so I'm trying to still figure out what to do with that. But right now I'm on Mixon. I like this game. I like Dalton. I like Tyler Boyd a ton. And on the other side, Gesicki, Devontae Parker, Fitzpatrick. I like that stack as well. So those are pretty much the plays for me in this game. I think it's definitely viable for a game stack, especially if you want to get off the chalk at quarterback and maybe run a Fitzpatrick or a Andy Dalton type stack, and then run it back with players from either of these teams, depending on which quarterback you go. A little game stack there. That's pretty much it for me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had the exact same idea. Now that the Bengals are 1.5 point favorites, I feel very confident that Joe Mixon is good chalk, as opposed to when they were underdogs. He's not getting massive receiving volume, but now that doesn't seem to be playing as much of a factor. And I guess just one more note is that Miami generates basically league bottom pressure, and the Bengals offensive line hasn't been that awful. They match up well to give Andy Dalton a clean pocket all day. My only concern with that is Andy Dalton has been terrible out of a clean pocket, because he's not that good. But if there were to be a day for him to turn it around, to have just a solid day, it would be today. So I don't mind Bengals passing stacks, but I think I would attack this with Joe Mixon and then stack Miami Dolphins on the other side, Fitzpatrick, Parker, Gesicki stack.
Yeah, in tournaments too. Cincinnati ran a lot of 13 personnel last week. John Ross didn't really see the field, but this would be a spot as a GPP flyer, just to attack this Dolphin secondary. What you're laughing?
No. I was probably cracking my knuckles.
Oh no, yeah. I think even though
I like this. I have some John Ross.
I think that there's definitely some obviously it's in large field GPPs. You can run some John Ross. It is what it is, Yeah, no,
I think the 13 personnel was probably a product of them easing John Ross back in. I think it is reasonable to project John Ross to get more and more snaps through the end of the season.
Well, I also think it had to do with New England's pressure, right? So they wanted to pretty much get more tight ends in the field. It just doesn't. I feel like John Ross would be in a better situation this week versus Miami with the lack of pressure, and the clean pocket for Dalton also gives Ross some more credibility.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good thing for Ross. So yeah, all right, next game, but I do like that. I'll probably actually have more John Ross now that we've talked about it. Next game we have is Indy versus Carolina. Indy are 6.5 point favorites. The line has come up 1.5 to 47.5. Every single tout is just dunked on Will Grier.
See, 4,300 Will Grier. I don't hate it. He's 4,300, and we're plus EV if we're rostering McCaffrey and Michael Thomas in cash games this season. So, hey, if you're going to take a risk one week, I don't hate Will Grier. I think it's just a pricing play. I don't think he's good, but it's just a pricing play.
I still think he's better than people think, because the two arguments against him are he had a bad preseason, a really bad preseason. And the thing is, he was playing with third stringers against I don't know how you can extrapolate any of that data to any meaningful standard. And they were well, he didn't get to play over Kyle Allen. You know who wasn't letting him play over Kyle Allen? A coach that got fired. They were oh, he sucks at coaching, let's fire him. But he's good enough that he didn't play him over Kyle Allen. I don't know. The arguments seem very straw man arguments. And at his price, and he was a beast in college. He threw for 7,000 yards and 70 touchdowns in 2 seasons. He was a beast in college. He's got great weapons around him. I don't know. It just seems and Kyle Allen's also terrible. He was awful. Leading the league in sack percentage. I think he was actually third. Top 5 in interception percentage. And his sacks were deeper than usual. He had an above average yards per sack. So he was an unbelievable drive killer. And people act there's any risk. Also, people think there's risk going from Kyle Allen to Will Grier for the weapons around him. Like people are like, well, it could hurt McCaffrey. I can't imagine. I can't.
See, like they're going to allow McCaffrey. Frank Reich's defense is probably the reason so many people aren't as bullish on Will Grier. If he was going against like a softer defense, like a softer defensive mind, I just think that like you pretty much they're going to allow McCaffrey stuff underneath. Like that's just pretty much Indy's game plan. They let you get the stuff underneath in terms of defense, and then they try to limit the big plays. I just think like if McCaffrey's going to be in that situation, he's chasing records, obviously. Like, that's what they're playing for at this point. Like, if you want to be correlated with McCaffrey, Greer is fine in that instance. I think if you're going to get McCaffrey at low ownership in a dome today, like, just play him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. On the other side, the only thing I'm interested in is T.Y. Hilton. Didn't play a ton of snaps last week, but still got like 6 or 8 targets, which, I mean, I don't know. If they're just running him out for the passing downs, sure, who cares? Yeah, that's probably all I'd look to. You could go to Marlon Mack, as they are massive favorites, and he does get most of the rushing game work, but I don't know. Just not my type of back that doesn't catch any passes.
Yeah. No, I get you.
All right, next game we have is Washington versus the New York Giants. Washington, they open as 2.5-point favorites, and now they're 1-point dogs, 42-point total. Not really any interest for me in this game outside of Washington defense. It does look like they're facing Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones leads the league in fumbles, and he's missed like 4 games, 2 games with injury, and the 2 games he didn't start at the beginning of the season. He is like up there in interception percentage, gets sacked. I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you play defense against him, especially when they're at home?
Yeah, I actually kind of have some interest in this game for large field GBPs. Like, I don't mind Haskins to McLaurin and then run it back with like a Slayton. I think that'll be a pretty low-owned stack in this game. And I think this game could, in terms of just like, I know it's a second divisional game, but I don't know. The total's pretty low at 41. Like, I don't hate this game as like one of those low-owned games that could shoot out for whatever reason. But I also really like Washington D in cash games. And from there, I just pretty much – I think Adrian Peterson's also in play, as crazy as that sounds, at 5K.
Any interest in Steven Sims? I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. He got like 11 targets. Trey Quinn out for the year with a concussion. Like, he's their full-time slot guy. It's just, what is that worth with Dwayne? Yeah, he's got 11 and 7 targets in the past 2 weeks. Full-time slot receiver, but what is that worth with Dwayne Haskins?
I really – like, honestly, I don't mind it. It's just for this game. Like, I don't think the Giants' pass secondary is that great. Like, Dwayne Haskins, another pricing play at 4,700. Like, I don't think he's good, but yeah, the targets will be coming from Dwayne Haskins. So I would just prefer McLaurin. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot more accurate passes to Steven Sims for him to hit value. He probably needs to catch like 6 or so, whereas McLaurin needs like 2. It just seems like you're betting. You need like 1 to 2 good plays from Haskins, whereas for Sims, you need like 6 or 7. So, all right. Next game we have Atlanta versus Jacksonville. I haven't checked the ownership as of like today or yesterday, but I'm guessing we're going to get a lot of ownership in this game because I know on the Atlanta side, Austin Hooper, 4,400 is a bad price on a week where we want to get up to Michael Thomas, Christian McCaffrey. You can pretty much just lock him into people's cash games. I think Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are also projected for a decent amount of ownership. So, I am going to be looking at Jacksonville D and probably stacking them with Leonard Fournette, but I guess if the ownership's changed, maybe not.
Yeah, I think Cooper's going to be really chalky today at 4,400. I don't mind that play. I don't mind Julio Jones at all either. I don't mind running Jacksonville D at Matt Ryan. I just think obviously Matt Ryan has like turnover equity, so I don't mind that. Like, he's going to turn the ball over. I know Jacksonville's defense has been pretty much terrible since Jalen Ramsey left. Devontae Freeman is another guy that's popping a little bit for me, but I just don't like rostering him. I don't think he's had one of the goal line carries for Atlanta in the games that he's been back. So, like the 3 games that he's been. So I'm not really on Freeman. But he looks like he'll be a little bit chalky.
Yeah, so I'm looking at UF Collective has Julio Jones 22, Devonta Freeman 12.
Wow, they're coming
Austin Hooper 18, and Matt Ryan 9%, which I think is like top 5 for quarterbacks. So, man, that is a lot of chalk on one team. Although I don't quite agree with Julio Jones being the highest owned player on the slate, but even if you put large error bands around these ownership projections, that's still a lot of ownership.
Yeah, I have Michael Thomas as I'm just looking. You have collective has Julio as I have him the second highest.
Yeah, I would think it's more likely that Michael Thomas ends up being the highest owned. But still, like Julio Jones, even if he's top 3, 4, 5, 7,
yeah, I get it.
Is a lot of chalk. So yeah, I don't know. I like Jacksonville. I'd either stack this game heavily or run Jacksonville defense, Leonard Fournette.
No, I get you.
All right, next game on the slate, we have Cleveland versus Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland 10.5-point dogs in their own stadium, a 49.5-point total. My guess is we're going to get a good bit more ownership on Lamar Jackson now that we have Dion Lewis chalk plus DeAndre Washington chalk. Like it's a lot easier to get up to Jackson now. I still don't think you can really do it in cash if you're going for McCaffrey, Michael Thomas. I think you have to drop like Hooper out basically.
See, but are we going for McCaffrey, Michael Thomas? Like, I feel like people are on the fence on that. It seems like
I can't imagine why you wouldn't. Like you said, like if you just did it all season, you'd be massively profitable. I don't know, like.
Yeah, that's why I just can't see again. His for what it's worth, McCaffrey's ownership spiked a little bit since like Friday, I would say. So
he's still looking at it, not like massively owned. Like
he's not going to be massively owned. Yeah,
that's all I need to play a ton of him.
Yeah.
So for this game, I mean, in the blowout, maybe there's a good correlation with Lamar Jackson, Ravens D, or like Mark Ingram, Ravens D. I'm just like, I don't know. The Browns are so massively dysfunctional. I can't, in good conscience, run any Browns.
Yeah, I get it. I think you hit the nail on the head. Lamar and Ravens D. People aren't going to pay up for Ravens defense. They're in a pretty good spot, obviously. Divisional game, they're going to want some late season revenge here versus the Browns, and I like the spot. And I like correlating Lamar with the Ravens. So,
in terms of, I think this will probably matter for a few teams. In terms of their motivation, the Browns are essentially out. They need like a handful of teams they need the Colts to win out, the Raiders to win out, Pittsburgh to lose out, the Titans to lose out for them to get into the playoffs. So they're essentially out. All of those things are not going to happen. Whereas the Ravens can lock up the 1 seed. So I'd imagine that they're like in a massive motivation spot, whereas the Browns are pretty much done. So yeah, I don't mind running like Ravens D with either Mark Ingram or Lamar Jackson.
I would imagine people are trying to get up to Lamar at this point. It just makes sense with the Dion Lewis news. So maybe McCaffrey's out. Yeah, it seems like that's kind of the way the construction's going right now.
All right, let's get into our next game then with Dion Lewis. We have the Titans as 3-point home dogs to the New Orleans Saints. The total has come down 1.5 points to 50, but it's still one of the higher totals on the slate. So I guess my first question is, because we'll talk about the next chalk running back of the week in a few games. When we have two, like they're just like massive values. Like the projections I'm looking at have right now it just has Washington as like multiple points value better than the next closest player. Dion Lewis will certainly enter that same territory. How are you approaching those if you're looking at like 150 builds?
Yeah, so I'm not really. In terms of MME, like I don't know. I haven't really figured out my contest selection yet. Honestly, I'm probably going to try to be overweight on these guys. I would imagine, or at least I'd probably be with the field because I want like a good exposure to McCaffrey and Michael Thomas in a lot of my entries. So if I was building 150, I'd probably be with the field with Mixon, with the field with Lewis, with the field actually overweight on Washington, I would say. And then from there, I'm going to probably have like 50% McCaffrey and Michael Thomas. I think that's the best way to kind of approach it. I don't know if I'm playing 150 yet, but.
Yeah, I mean, in any contest selection, the 20 max, the whatever, it's still difficult. Even like the 5 max, you're just like gaining hardly no leverage by playing someone like Washington. But I do think that he's just and the same thing can be said for Dion Lewis, that they're such good values. They're so easy to hit value that I will be willing to get different elsewhere to play those guys.
See, I think you could, like, people say that, but then, like, you just eat the DeAndre Washington chalk in those and then just differentiate your build outside of a cash game build. So
yeah, that's what I plan on doing because I think they're just that good values.
Yeah.
Anything? I mean, in this game, really for me, I'm probably I don't know. I guess you could always stack this game. I'm just not a big fan of stacking the Titans in general, but now that their target share has been pretty concentrated to AJ Brown and then other guys, I think it's much more viable to do like a Tannehill, AJ Brown, Dion Lewis stack. especially as underdogs. But I mean, the Saints defense is good. I don't really care. The game script sets up well for them to like continue to throw throughout the game, which is something Ryan Tannehill has not typically done, is throw a lot. So that's kind of, I think that's bodes well for his fantasy stock right now. On the other side, any hesitation to play any Saints because we've got Drew Brees outdoors. We do know he is afraid of like wildlife, I would imagine. The outdoors scares him. Are you afraid of playing Drew Brees on the outside?
I'm not as. I usually kind of stay away from Drew Brees on the road. Like we have the home road splits that kind of show that it's not the greatest, most optimal play, but like Michael Thomas, regardless, we just play him anywhere at this point, right?
Oh God, yeah. Even if you were full on fade,
I have no issue playing Michael Thomas. You just play him.
Yeah, even if you were like, if you thought it was just the worst spot for Drew Brees, like he can't succeed, like his legs are broken, his kids are all dead. You would just be like, fire up Michael Thomas. Who cares? The only other thing we have in this game is Alvin Kamara. Man, he has not been the same player since coming off of that injury. I think the stats, like in terms of tackles evaded, have backed it up. Like his elusiveness have all backed that up, saying he just has not been the same player since that injury. But he's 7,500. He's been getting all of the work. And now he faces he's got a great game environment as a 50-point total. They have a large implied team total of 26.5. How do you approach Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, so for me, I think Kamara, you can take a shot on him. I don't love it. Like I'd rather go in other directions, especially the new running back value that we have. It's opened up, but I think he's definitely fine. Just because so many people are so tilted over how you're kind of just leveraging the recency bias. He's going to see like 3 or 4 passes. That's a pretty significant floor just to start off the game, and that price is too cheap. It'd probably be more of a FD play for me, but I don't know. I think I can swing it on DK with the PPR.
All right, next game we have is the Jets hosting Pittsburgh.
The price, I'm talking about in terms of the price. Price is differentiated.
The Jets are 3.5-point dogs at home. A 37-point total has come down 2 points after opening it nearly the lowest at 39. I don't know. Who cares? I'm not playing this game.
Well, you said the Jets in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. It's a 37-point total on a slate with a ton of good games. I guess that my only thing would be maybe if I know like Robbie Anderson was dealing with an illness earlier and Demaryius Thomas was unlikely to play as well. If they lost a lot of receivers at that point, maybe I get back on board. But just the scoring potential for either of these teams is not great. I don't know. You have to pay a ton for Pittsburgh's defense. Maybe you consider running them with James Conner, but he didn't return to like a massive workload. So can't find myself to get into this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. It'd be a tough game, I think, to roster guys from, especially with the team with the total overall, and then the Jets team total at 17. So
yeah, James Conner played 34 of 59 snaps, only got 8 carries, but they were losing the Bills, and he did get 5 targets. I don't know. Maybe I could run some James Conner Pittsburgh defense stacks, and if there was ever a time for him to get a full workload, it's while they're chasing a playoff berth. They could take the driver's seat if they win today and the Titans lose. So I don't know. Maybe that's not the worst play in this game. I probably still won't do it.
All right. What's the next one?
Next game we have is Chargers versus Oakland. Chargers are 7.5-point favorites. The totals come down to 45.5. I mean, DeAndre Washington, good chalk at 4K flat. We saw 2 weeks ago when he got the start, he got like 14 or 16 carries. I believe he got 14 of 21 running back carries. And he was targeted like 7 or 8 times, led the team in receptions at 6. Like the Jalen Richard receiving back thing just did not happen. He did not really cut into the work that DeAndre Washington got at all, which makes sense. DeAndre Washington went to Texas Tech and caught like over 100 passes in his time there. Like he's a beast of a pass catcher, and he doesn't tip the defense off as to what you want to like run in terms of your play call. So it makes sense for me that they made him a 3-down back while Josh Jacobs was out. And I think we're going to see that again. Easy chalk there. On the other side, I don't know. It's not their target share is so spread out. Like they have so many players that I want to play, but I don't think any of them really, other than maybe Austin Eckler, can have this massive ceiling on a weekly basis. What are you doing with the Chargers side?
I think Melvin Gordon is an okay play this week, especially with the price tag. It sounds kind of redundant because
it sounds like you're
we keep saying this every week, and No, I know, but I hate his guts. But I just think that at that price tag, it's fine. I think correlating Raiders D with Washington is actually in play versus the San Diego offense that has pretty much sputtered all season. So yeah, I think Washington's the obvious value, and then from there, I think the best play on the outside of that, I like correlating them with Oakland defense.
Yeah, I like what Oakland defense is like 2,200, right? Like
Yeah, that's
massively
pretty
cheap, so it
cheap.
doesn't take a lot for them to pay off value. And also, Philip Rivers is quietly dust this season. Like his touchdown
I
rate
don't think
is
it's
the lowest.
quietly anymore. He's just outright bad, and if you just watch the games, like he's horrible.
Like
So
there were rumors that he was going to be replaced by Tyrod Taylor until they blew out the Jags, and that kind of quieted the noise. But like I still think that he's like he's clearly a bad quarterback. His touchdown rate is the lowest it's been since like the beginning of his career. Interception rate, the highest it's been basically ever. Yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, very bad because it doesn't account. It accounts for like interceptions, and turnovers, and yeah, I don't know. He's just not very good anymore. Oakland gets them as a super cheap defense. I'm sure they could pick him off once or twice, even if they don't they're not going to kill them, but that doesn't take a lot at 2,200. So I actually like that a lot. I think that's the best correlation play. Outside of that, I'd probably just go with Mike Williams.
yeah, Mike Williams is a really good play. Yeah, we're seeing the touchdown. He's finally hitting that positive regression in terms of TDs. Had one last week, had one the week before. So yeah, I don't mind that call at all.
All right, let's see. The next game on our slate is Denver versus Detroit. Denver 7-point favorites, a 38.5-point total. No longer the lowest total on the main slate. That has come up a point from 37.5. I don't know. On this game, it's really just one player for me. I guess we should note Kerryon Johnson comes back. He wasn't he wasn't a great fantasy player before getting injured. I don't think he's going to be great after. My only play in this game is Courtland Sutton. Detroit has allowed like the most, the largest depth of target. They're the only one over 10 this season. They're second in air yards allowed. I don't care if Darius Slay is playing. Courtland Sutton is like been one of the best players. Like he has been one of the best receivers in the league, especially when you factor in how awful his quarterback play has been. So I think he's one of the better tournament plays of the slate. I don't know what his ownership is going to be.
Yeah, I think Sutton's an easy play. Just a matter of trying to correlate him, which is difficult. Outside of that, like I that's pretty much it in this game. Like this isn't the greatest game.
Yeah, I just like the Kenny Golladay ceiling has not been as much there as I had hoped because of David Blau. Like I think his best game was the first game they played with the Thanksgiving game. And I believe that was the one where like he just walked into the end zone. He was wide open. Like outside of that, it's been tough sledding for Kenny Golladay.
Dude, I hate Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, I was looking at maybe like Denver defense, Courtland Sutton, not correlated, but like I don't know. I still think
correlated.
No, but I still think if you get like a handful of turnovers in opponent's territory, that it could correlate within one game, even though it might not be on the larger sample of games.
Yeah,
and David Blau sucks. So
yeah, he is bad. Maybe you could go Denver D. Denver D's been popping in optimals pretty much all week. So
all right,
hate to sound like Justin, but
let's get into our next game. We have Seattle versus Arizona. Seattle. Okay, so this line has moved a lot. It's Seattle's moved from a 10-point favorite when it opened to an 8-point favorite, still at a 51-point total, with the line coming in favor of Arizona, and Christian Kirk it's expected that he plays. I will be heavy on the Christian Kirk, especially in my Russell Wilson stacks, because I guess what are you doing with the Seattle side? Because it makes sense that this would be a clear Chris Carson game, but I don't know. He doesn't catch passes.
I don't think it is. Yeah, I pretty much would rather go with Jacob Hollister. He'd be my favorite play on the Seattle side, correlating him with Wilson and then going one of these receivers on the outside. That would pretty much be like the builds for how I'd kind of construct my build. I know a lot of people are on Lockett. Lockett can kind of go away though. That's the thing that I'd much rather play Devontae Parker, I think, or just get up to or just go down to Cortland. I'd rather play Sutton than Lockett, right? Like we know even though just with Lockett's ownership, I feel like Lockett's ownership isn't as high as I thought it would be.
So maybe it's not massively high. It's like under 10% right now.
It's like under 10%. So yeah, maybe I would just play Lockett at that point.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I was going to say if Lockett is highly owned, which I think that he was projected to be a bit higher owned earlier in the week, DK Metcalf would have been like in my leverage play. He's
See, I
still
don't love
underpriced.
DK though.
I just think he gets a ton of air yards, and I love me some
You're the
sweet
big
air
area
yards.
guy.
But if Lockett's going to be like not that highly owned, I don't know why you would get off the best projected play on the team. So, like in terms of receivers.
No, it makes sense.
Outside of that, they did lose Josh Gordon. For me, like it would make sense that David Moore is the guy who fills in, but I would just have too much concern with like Jerron Brown or Malik Turner, I believe, getting some work. I'm just not sure David Moore runs into that role 100%.
See, like he ran into that role, but in the last 4 games, he ran into that role 3 out of the 4. So it was Malik Turner last week, but I don't know. Well, they played like even snaps 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I get there's a lot of like volatility in all 3 of those guys. So just a matter of like where you land. I think it's a good correlation with if you want to get off like Metcalf and Lockett, save some cash, get up to McCaffrey, and just roster like a game stack with Hollister, one of those 3, and McCaffrey, Michael Thomas with Wilson.
Yeah, I like that. And I did not know that they had been that comfortable running David Moore in that role. And yeah, Jerron Brown hasn't really been a factor since early in the season. I think they cut him at one point and brought him back or something. Maybe that's preseason. But either way, he hasn't really been a factor. So maybe, yeah, the David Moore projection isn't as fragile as I would have thought. So yeah, I kind of like that.
That's like a zing at my Galaxy brain play. I don't think you realize that it's like a large field GPP dart, pretty much.
I understand that you're not playing
I don't know. That's pretty much. What'd you say?
I understand that David Moore, you're not playing him in 100-man or in cash.
You're not playing him in 100-man or in cash. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
To
make that clear.
I kind of
like Malik Turner's in as well. This is the highest total game of the slate. It's 4:00 game. Way to differentiate yourself with Russell Wilson. I don't really hate going to one of those tertiary receivers with no Josh Gordon now in the mix. You're taking that not like the target share was huge, but now there's more. The number 3 wide receivers wide open in a fast-paced game versus Arizona. Like, I don't hate it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Next and last game of the main slate, Philly versus Dallas. Philly is still going to be without Nelson Aguilar. I don't think they released anything on Jordan Howard yet. I still don't expect him to play, but I could be wrong there. But Boston Scott's still underpriced at $4K, I think, for the role he's getting. But at this point, with DeAndre Washington, Dion Lewis, it would just be like the Galaxy brain pivot to sacrifice all that value to get to Boston Scott. I don't know. Any interest in Boston Scott?
Not really. Like at 4K, if he was 3,100, probably more interest. I like this game. It's just a matter of like what the pieces. Like I like Amari Cooper a ton. I don't mind Dak either. Like I think that this is a defense that we can exploit, and they're going to be pretty low owned on the slate. So it's just a matter of preference, I guess. In terms of where you want to go, Zeke's had big games versus Dallas versus the Eagles in the past. I just don't really want to run Zeke into this defense, and with the running back value that we have, it makes it more difficult. Like it'd be more Dak, Amari Cooper, and then try to like pretty much run it back with an Ertz or like I don't know. I haven't really figured out kind of which way I want to go, but I think this game's interesting from an ownership standpoint, and the fact that you're going to get this Dallas passing offense at very low ownership relative to the field, and then on top of that, the matchup's great. So I like Amari. What are we getting from Amari's ownership?
You know,
I have it in front of you, like around 10%.
Yes, I think that's what it was. It was like 11 maybe.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Like Gallup as well.
Yeah, Amari, I am looking at 11. Yeah, 11%. Gallup under 10%. Dak under 10%. Dak actually coming in kind of highly owned, but I do think that might. I know I have seen a lot of people talking about how concerned they are with Dak's shoulder injury, and man, they are going to pump him full of chemicals and ship him out there like nothing's wrong with him in a game that if they win this game, the division's over. They win the division, and I don't think the next week would matter. So I think they could rest him if they wanted to. I don't know if that's something Jarrah would do, but they could win this game and rest him for the playoffs. So I think Dak is going to be fine in the sense of they're going to pump him full of painkillers and he's going to get out there and do what he does. So
what do you have for ownership on Dak?
like 9%. I kind of think I would bet the under on that one though. I just think, I don't know. Maybe I've just listened to too many industry podcasts, but everyone has said how concerned they are with 9%. So like same as Matt Ryan. So he's projecting as a chalkier quarterback. I would take Matt Ryan over him in terms of ownership projection, like if we were just betting them.
Yeah, I get you.
So I don't know. I think that's kind of high.
No, I'm with you. I like Dak. I think that's the shoulder does concern me though. I have to delve deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of like supposedly on their RPOs. He told one of his receivers, I forget which one, he was like, "I'm not throwing this ball. It's a run play. I'm not throwing it anymore."
Yeah, I don't want to hear that. I'm not rostering Dak. Is that legit? He said that?
I've heard that on like 8 podcasts. I would assume it's legit. I don't think everyone's just repeating it. Thing is, I don't care. Like I don't know. They're going to pump full of painkillers, and he's never missed a practice in his life. Like he's a tough dude who's going to be pumped full of chemicals in a game that they literally have to win. So,
no, I get you.
So I think much like defense, I think the injury concerns are going to be more of a factor on ownership than they will be on projections. And that's what I like. I like to run into that. So
no, I'm with you.
That's the main slate. We have some questions though. Let's start off with league full PPR. Sit one, Boone, Bell, DJ Moore, or Boyd. I would sit Le'Veon Bell. He's trash. Unless you wanted to sit Tyler Boyd. But I think
sit Tyler Boyd.
Given the context of the game, I would take sit Bell. Le'Veon Bell sucks.
Sit Boyd, please.
He's had like two 20-point games this season, I think, and like no 25-point games. Le'Veon Bell sucks.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's terrible.
Full PPR, pick one. Patrick Laird, Kareem Hunt, Mike Boone. Oh, Mike Boone. Definitely Mike Boone.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Boone call.
If Mike Boone was on the main slate, what do you think? How many lineups do you think would be running all three value running backs?
A lot. It depends on your contest, right? Like,
yeah, I would wonder. Yeah, I was thinking in the context of tournaments. Because I don't know. Is that something people you think would just be like averse to doing because it's not something they ever really get to do?
Dion Lewis is like an obvious play at this point, so I don't know.
Who needs new batteries in the smoke detector? That's Bobby.
Yeah, that's me.
Mixon and Cash. No. So this is actually a good question. Mixon and Cash. You guys still on Conley, Samuel, and Cash. Despite like early week looking not great for DJ Chark, it does look like he's going to play. So yeah, I'd be off Conley in that context. And then in that price range, I would look to Samuel. But with the Dion Lewis news, I don't think you have to go that low. Like I think I would probably look to the middle price range for wide receivers.
Seems like we're gonna get it's going to be another duped lineup week.
I mean, yeah, if it wasn't going to be before with the Dion Lewis news now, expect a lot of dupes. But no, I would say I'm still probably not mixing Cash because I'm running Dion Lewis, DeAndre Washington, and Christian McCaffrey. So
you're running McCaffrey, but I think the optimal play now is Mixon. The more I think about it. I don't know. I want to play McCaffrey and Cash. I don't know. I have to look into it more. We have to get off the show because I haven't really looked into that.
You guys, the other part, you guys still on Conley, Samuel, and Cash? Probably not. I would doubt the place I'm paying for wide receiver stays the same. And don't play Conley anyways because DJ Chark is back.
Conley and Cash? You don't play Conley and Cash.
Well, it's because earlier in the week it didn't look like DJ Chark was going to play.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So now, no, don't do that.
I look at NFL stuff on Friday, Saturday. I'm not earlier in the week guy.
Full PPR, Boston Scott or Mike Boone. Mike Boone. I think Mike Boone is like.
Mike Boone's pretty easy there.
Who wins, Philly versus Dallas? Probably Dallas. Philly sucks. Like they had no business. Like I don't know. I guess maybe covering the spread is a better way to phrase it. They had no business covering against Washington. They barely beat the Giants. They had to take it to overtime against a horrible Giants team. They're like a bad football team.
Yeah.
All right. That is every question we have. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. For myself, at Kyle Tweets here. For Bobby Gomes, at Bobby Gomes DFS. We will catch you probably next Wednesday for the final regular season slate.
Yeah, nice.